say anything. Be very quiet. Mind rabbit. I think we got it. I think we're live, folks. Hey, everybody. Sean Dotson here with the Flip Side, and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Flip the Script. And you all know this is your non-PC, beer-drinking, thrill-of-the-chase talking show. So tonight, I'm drinking a Happy Camper IPA from the Santa Fe Brewery out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. So as I pop a top, I want to cheer you all and welcome you to another fantastic show. Cheers, everyone. And everybody should know my good friend Mike Davis and Todd Birmingham, both from Harry's. So you have three gentlemen from Harry's tonight. Some of you probably wouldn't call us gentlemen, but okay.
Well,
most.
Yeah.
Yeah, most. Let's just say that. So cheers to all you in the chat room. And I think it was Jimmy Fast was actually the front-running bastard tonight that got in, and then Sir Crow got in right after him. But just want to say cheers to all you in the chat room. I see we've got Alan K in there, Davio22, Craig Carter, Hooley, Mark Darling, 23, Monarca, Rusty Nipples, Rob, I'm never going to pronounce your last name right, Anagram, Hooley, All Pain, No Gain. And I'm sure there's a lot more of you in there. So cheers to all you out there. Now, before we get started tonight, guys, I've got to address something that's probably not going to be popular. So there was something that was said here, you know, a few days ago that really just kind of irked me. And I've got to address this person. Now I'm not gonna say their name. Well, you know what? This is a non-PC show, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and say their name. Peyton Manning. I've got to tell you, Tuesdays are not laundry day. Tuesdays are for the Flip Side, the non-PC beer drinking, thrill of the chase talking show. Okay, I've worked really hard to get this show. You know, I used to have to follow somebody else on an after-hours show. I used to have to do shows late at night just so I can get a time to do it. I've worked really hard for Tuesdays. So don't sit there and try and say Sundays are not for laundry, that they're supposed to be on Tuesdays. I'm just really offended by that, Peyton. I mean, I don't know what happened. You used to sling Papa John's, and now you're doing, you know, Tide commercials, man. I mean, if you need some work, I need a moderator. You know, I mean, the pay's not great, but I can tell you the benefits are wonderful. We get to drink beer, we hang out with cool people, and we bullshit about this treasure hunt. So keep Sundays for doing laundry, because Tuesdays are for Flip Side. That's all I got.
You tell them, Sean.
Fired me up, man. Let me tell you, these people out there, they just don't understand what kind of hard work we put into this.
Yeah, it's grueling.
I just want to set the tone for tonight, guys, all right? I mean, Peyton, come on, really, if you want to move laundry day from Sunday, move it to a day where there's nothing interesting happening, like hump day.
I got to go check my laundry.
Cheers.
Actually, my laundry's in too, but it can wait.
God darn it, Peyton. See what you're doing? You're ruining my show. All right, guys. So, hey, this is Flip the Script. This is a show where the guest gets to flip it on Flip and become the guest host. Well, this week was a little different. There was originally someone that I had planned to be the guest host, but unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, they weren't able to make it. So I had to make some last-minute changes, and I reached out to Mike, and I said, hey, Mike, you want to be a guest on the show? And he said, sure. And I said, well, what do we want to talk about? Well, we decided, and kind of just quickly going back and forth, that we wanted to talk about low-hanging fruit. And the reason why we're bringing this up is because Scrapbook 204 came out. You know, what has it been, like 2-3 weeks ago that came out now? Do we know?
I've got it up here. Let's see. What's the date?
When did that come out?
August 2019, it says.
Okay. Yeah. So it was last month, but it's been like just a couple weeks or so. But in there, what does he say, Mike? What is that quote? Can you read it if you got it up?
There were strawberry bushes too, but they were isolated. The fruit was small and it hung close to the ground. We didn't mess with those guys.
So, I mean, there's a little history here with this, and we kind of talked back and forth to this on Harry's, but kind of talk about the history in your eyes, Mike, of what that means to you.
Well, I mean, I'd say it's a metaphor for low-hanging fruit, and mess with it. It's not going to get you anywhere. That's kind of the way I read it on first run through on it. I mean, you can look at it and you can overanalyze it till the cows come home, but it looks like he's saying don't mess with the low-hanging fruit. And I would think that's newbies come into this and they've got the same few ideas. They'll read the Thrill of the Chase, they'll read the poem, they'll come into it with the same few ideas about where Warmwater Halt is, about what Brown is, about what the Blaze is, so on and so forth. And there's been 10,000 newbies before them who've had the same ideas and come up empty. But maybe Fenn's telling us we need to think a little harder and not look at so much at the obvious things.
Yeah,
is what I'm thinking. It's not going to be easy, I think, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Low-hanging fruit, you're going to have to, reach a little higher, climb a little higher or something to get the good stuff.
You're going to work harder.
You're going to have to work harder, yeah. I mean, there's just full of gold out there. He's technically giving it away, but we have to work for it. We got to earn it. Yeah.
It just struck me when you were saying that, Mike, like your description of that. And it's an interesting contrast to the ant elephant comment that he made in the Playboy interview. So it's like, on one hand, we have everybody's, stepping on ants or paying attention to the ants and the elephants are running by. But then on the flip side, you've got it where he's saying, don't pay attention to the low hanging fruit. So it's like, are we supposed to balance those two comments and try to find something? It's like it's hard, but it's not obvious. It's interesting because it's like, with a lot of things that Forrest says, there's seemingly contradictions in a lot of the things that he says and does. I think this is a good illustration of one of those, because if what you're saying is true, it's, you're going to have to work for it. It's not as easy as just, picking up the poem, reading it, figuring out where Homer Brown is, and then going and getting the treasure. Obviously not. But it's an interesting contrast. It's almost like a foil for the ant elephant comment. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I see them as kind of different metaphors. The ant and elephant thing, I would say, relates to his telling us in the past, look at the big picture. He's telling us, look at the big picture. We're focused on the ants. We're not seeing the elephants running by. I see that more as a focus on the big picture type thing. What's really going on around you, rather than with the low hanging fruit thing. I think he's probably telling us that it's not going to be easy. You're going after something other people have gone after in the past that didn't get them anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's really two different metaphors there for different.
Oh, definitely. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it all comes down to how you interpret the ant versus elephant thing. I took it as those people who are, dissecting, what's on page 93 and the third paragraph, and they're, lining it up with the Illuminati. It's like, that's the way I interpreted it, which is you're paying way too close attention to minutia that really wasn't his intention on it's just fluff. It's all just filler, where you should be paying attention to the serious stuff. But then at the same time, it's not that easy. So I don't know.
Yeah, but then of course he tells us it's straightforward. So you're right. There's a lot of contradictory messages coming from him. So
I mean, on that note, what do we perceive as being low hanging fruit? What's the stuff that people gravitate to that everybody seems to think maybe initially that he's maybe alluding that it's not that. And one thing I'll say right off the bat is I think low hanging fruit is a hot, like a thermal feature. I think a lot of people gravitate toward that. There's so many of them. I mean, it's, the word warm, suggests that thermal features are involved. Could that be considered low hanging fruit? And maybe what are some of the others?
Yeah. Well, now that you bring that up, is a good time for me to bring up something and I'm going to share my screen here really quick. Let's see if I can do that. Do it this way. Can you guys see that?
Yeah. Did you prompt him for that great segue there, Sean?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So so Mike, why don't you explain this real quick? This was something I put together for a post I put on Chase Chat back in, was it October of 2015, I think. There was a lot of talk along these lines about, and basically this was my idea of the low-hanging fruit that people were going after, and that lots of people had gone after before them and didn't get them anywhere. I put it all in one box and called it the Fenn failure box. So low-hanging fruit, and what Todd just talked about was hot springs or thermal features. So that's in there. Brown trout, I consider to be low-hanging fruit. A lot of people consider that's the answer to Homer Brown. Omegas, Lewis and Clark, the scrapbooks, fishing holes, brown bears. I would probably take that back out if I had to do this again because, Fenn doesn't really talk about brown bears. Well, yeah, that brings up a point, though, Mike. You're saying he doesn't talk about brown bears. So why are all these things considered low-hanging fruit? Why would you say that? Because
they're people who read The Thrill of the Chase and then read the poem kind of get led by the nose to these things. Yeah. And I don't know if it was something intentional on Fenn's part or something, it just works out that way. Maybe he didn't mean it to be this way. But, and it happens with person after person. I've been in the Chase almost from the very beginning. And I don't know how many times I have seen newbies come into the Chase with the same ideas about what the clues in the poem are. And it's because they've read The Thrill of the Chase. And it's brown trout, it's Yellowstone, hot springs, fishing holes have to be involved somehow. Lewis and Clark have to be involved. Oh, the Omegas must be important, and in scrapbooks giving me confirmation. And, it happens over and over and over again over the years. Yeah. So and, I posted this in 2015, and by then it was already old to me. So, I'd already seen it so many times I was sick of it.
Yeah. So, but you got to ask the question then, like you're saying, why are we all so wrapped around brown trout? The simple question would be, okay, if we didn't have the book and all we had was the poem, and let's just say the chapter Goldenmore, and that's all we were given, was that chapter and the poem, do you think people would be hung up on these things?
I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think brown trout would be in there. A lot of people might make a Yellowstone connection, thinking, warm waters. But, there wouldn't be a lot about fishing. There wouldn't be, Omegas. There wouldn't be a lot of other stuff, Lewis and Clark. I think people just, read The Thrill of the Chase. And like I said, they get led by the nose to these same few ideas over and over again.
Yeah. Well, Todd, did you have anything to add that before I just ask this next question?
No, I think Mike's totally right. I think if the poem lived in a vacuum, Mike's box here would be pretty much empty.
Yeah. Maybe Yellowstone would be in it, but I think the rest of it.
Iron. I hope we're not trying to talk down the newbies. I get what you're saying. I don't think we're trying to talk down to the newbies or talking bad about them. I think maybe.
Go ahead, Mike. The other reason I did this was not to talk down or make fun of them, but to sort of tell the newbies that, hey, a lot of people have walked the path you're walking down. It doesn't lead anywhere. You need to sort of break out of it.
I don't know if it leads anywhere, but it's
you
been talked ad nauseum.
You need to break out of this box that your thinking is in, and expand your horizons a little bit in other areas.
Yeah. Yeah. So now my next question is, okay, let's just say hypothetically, and this is a big what if, or what you want to call it, if we were just given the chapter Golden Moor in the poem, now would you think people would start looking into Fenn's past and maybe find out that, he had an affinity for Yellowstone and fishing and more, and that he had, cancer and all this other stuff? Do you think people would figure that out?
Oh, I think so. I think people would try to research him. I mean, when I was newer at this, I wanted to learn everything I could about him just so I could try to think like he does.
Yeah.
But, that's a big gulf to cross. There's, his life and my life have been so different, and he's seen so much more that I haven't. So it's hard to think like him.
I'm going to stop sharing this so we can get back to the full screen here.
He comes from a different era and has been through so many other things that I haven't been, like the Depression and World War II, and, being in the Air Force, being a fighter pilot in war, in combat. It's impossible to put myself in his shoes, basically, inside his head.
Yeah.
So, and he's been, in spite of all his memoirs he's written, there are large segments of his life he hasn't said a word about.
Yeah.
So, we don't know why the spot where he hid the treasure is really special to him. And it's probably something he's never written a word about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people would research him. I think they would, learn as much as they could about him. And I'm not sure it would help, because I don't think it's helped so far.
Yeah, I mean, because people have done that. I mean, people have really dug into his past and brought up things that, I wouldn't say would be embarrassing to him, but things that, maybe he's even forgotten. He's, he's like, really? Wow, I wish I could live to do the things I was attributed to, right?
Well, he's kind of said and alluded on a lot of occasions that, and we know for a fact that, the people he grew up with, most of the members of his family, friends, acquaintances, they've all died of old age. He's outlived all of them.
Yeah.
So, and he said, I don't know how many times, too, could he keep a secret if one is dead. So if there was anybody else who knew, what it was about this spot that was so special to him, I'm sure they're gone.
Yeah.
So,
and that could have been a big reason why he waited so long to write the book too. I mean,
yeah, he could have waited until there was nobody else.
That Eric, obviously his father, always, close family members, brother, sister, that type of thing. And maybe close friends that might have been able to know him well enough to understand that why that spot is special, that could have easily shortcutted their way to the end. I think that closest person
somebody like Donnie or, but they're all gone.
Could be some of his old pilot buddies, that maybe he's fished with over the years or something that could have passed, or.
There are still a few of his pilot buddies alive.
Yeah.
So, but this, I don't know. I mean, he knew them while he was in Vietnam, or when he knew them when he was on various bases or in training or whatever. He didn't know them when he was probably in New Mexico, knocking around New Mexico or other parts of the Rockies. So they may not even understand it either.
Yep. Give me 1 second, guys. I've got to handle something. You two talk amongst yourself. I'll be right back. I've got to handle something real quick. Be right back.
Okay.
So, Mike, since we're talking about low-hanging fruit, and then in the same scrapbook he's talking about huckleberries, it's again a contrast. I guess huckleberries are the things that we should be looking for, metaphorically speaking. So, if you had a Fenn success box, obviously we would all like to know what those items would be, but in your estimation,
that one's top secret.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting to consider though, because we often talk about the things that we don't believe are attributes of a winning solve, but I think very rarely do any of us talk about things that contribute to a winning solve. So
that's an interesting thought.
I mean, because we can't deny the fact if he brought up low-hanging fruit for a reason, then he really is talking about the huckleberries, right? So what are the huckleberries?
Yeah. That's a good question. Now, I was
$1 million
telling Sean,
question.
Those are the elephants.
Yeah.
Right.
Not the small
Sure.
isolated ones that you're just supposed to leave alone. Stop stomping on
Yeah.
the ants. Go for the huckleberries.
And I was telling Sean, I think before you joined, Todd, that I was in Yellowstone a couple of weeks ago, and the huckleberries are in season.
Cheers,
and,
IG.
there's huckleberries everywhere.
Right.
You get huckleberry pie. Everybody's wanting to give you huckleberries. So
Yep.
It's in Yellowstone.
it's
Alan
it's in
K,
Yellowstone.
you nailed it.
Yeah.
No,
But not
brother.
according to Mike, because of what has happened to Yellowstone. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't,
Oh,
I mean, the number of people. I mean,
it's
that
crazy.
that post that you made a few weeks back about your experience at Yellowstone, it's very eye opening.
Yeah.
And
We were there at the very peak of tourist season, unfortunately, but that was the only time we could get away to get out there, and it was just absolutely nuts. I have not seen such crowds anywhere. It's elbow to elbow everywhere.
Now, is that just in between? Let's call it Isa Lake down to Madison Junction. I mean, is that just between that road, or I mean, because I would imagine if you go in like Lamar Valley, it's probably not as popular as the touristy area. And I think Alan and I were talking about this last week a little bit.
We want to go back and do some hiking in the Lamar Valley, and hopefully we can do that in like some September or sometime when school's in session anyway, and the roads there are open, because some of the roads aren't open, for much of the year. But every place we went hiking, every place there was a trailhead to park was just packed. And just packed beyond belief.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just in Yellowstone; it was in the Grand Tetons. And we really wanted to do some hiking in the Tetons, so we drove down there one day, and the trailheads were just packed with people. And we went hiking up a couple of trails, and we never got very far away from people. They were everywhere. So I mean, how far could Ben hike realistically, carrying the load he had at almost 80 from any of those trailheads, and hide it somewhere where there aren't going to be
there's two things that circle around that. One, and I know K-Pro's in here and she can confirm this, but the one Q&A response she got from Fenn was, and it really wasn't a response from Fenn. It was more of a statement from Fenn, where Fenn had said, and I'm just paraphrasing this, I'll probably get it completely wrong, but he said he got a polite letter from a lady named Christy, who admits to being a deaf person, that said, if you're walking more than a mile, you're walking too far. Now, Christy, you could probably put that in here and correct me, please. Just put flip side and exactly what you put in there would be great. But it was more of a statement from Forrest. It wasn't an affirmation that you shouldn't walk more than a mile, theoretically, from where you park your car to where the treasure chest is. And then that kind of also coincides with another Q&A about somebody was questioning him and Donnie's hike, the 92 miles or something. And then he was questioning whether that's too far to walk. And he was trying to pinpoint how far Fenn actually walked. And Fenn said, hey, I'll say I walk less than a few miles if that'll help. I don't have the whole thing, and you guys can look this up and please, fact check me. I mean, I'm not the authority, and none of us are an authority on the chase. So always fact check anything we say, please, because we can get things wrong. But there's, how far did he really walk? Like you're saying, I mean, did he walk 500 feet just out in some bushes and threw the box in there, came back, got the treasure and threw the treasure in there and walked away laughing? Or did he have to hike, a few miles one way? I highly doubt that he walked 3 miles from where he parked his car one way. I think he's talking about the distance one way. He walked less than a few miles, and it may be total, I mean, that's, again, he's a 79 or 80-year-old guy.
If it was 3 miles one way, that's a full day's hiking with a load like he had, especially in rough country.
And doing it twice?
Yeah.
Well, 4 times, really. I mean,
no, that's 12. Yeah, it's 12 miles. I mean, it's
there's no way.
It's implausible, bordering on really just doesn't make any sense.
I want to give a shout out to DeCall. DeCall's in the chat room. So, hey, D, how are you doing, brother?
I mean, coupled with the fact that, he's given, hi, DeCall. Given the fact that he's given the numbers as often as he has about the 500 feet, 200 feet, that also suggests if more than several have been 500 feet to the treasure, it's probably not in some remote area. It's probably off some sort of well-traveled path, road, whatever, which then again reinforces that idea that he didn't really hike that far in order to hide the treasure.
Well, and like you said, it's got to be, if he said it's not in very close proximity to a man-made trail, then it's close to one, just not very close.
Right.
You know?
And a couple, just real quick, just, on the Yellowstone note, I don't think that there's anywhere, especially using Mike's description of anywhere he parked, anywhere along the way, it was loads of people. I don't think that he walked back to his car and was able to say out loud and laugh, did you just do that? I mean, I think that this was something that he did alone, and I don't think there was anyone else around. And he said that, he said, it says in the poem, I have gone alone in there. And he's reinforced that by the things he said after the fact by, I got back to my car. I said it out loud. Did I just do that? And laughed. This kind of description does not suggest to me a congested area like Yellowstone or a visited place.
Sure. Or a overly visited place.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Now I would agree that, I stayed on the trails. We stayed on the trails, and that's where the people were. You could go off trail, of course. But, a lot of people do that too. You can get backcountry permits. You can go camping back in the back of beyond wherever you want. But, Yellowstone is also like a laboratory. It's a well-studied place. So, there's scientists out there studying this and that, ecologists, naturalists out there. And then there's a whole bunch of enthusiasts who comb through Yellowstone looking for things like new waterfalls and things like that. So, aside from all the tourists, you've got all these people who are actually studying the place in minute detail. It's hard to believe anything's going to stay hidden out there for very long. It's possible, but it's just hard to believe.
Yeah. Well, now I want to get back on track a little bit with the low-hanging fruit a little bit. I just want to bring up see if I can share again right here. This is going to be, you guys can see my screen, obviously. This is from Forrest Gets Mail from a middle school. And the one I've got highlighted right here in the middle, it says, in the poem, Thrill of the Chase, when you talk about not far but too far to walk and take it in the canyon down, is it referring to a waterfall? And Forrest Fenn says, you guys seem to be hung up on waterfalls. Don't try to change my poem to fit your ideas. Now, again, it goes back to this. Why does Forrest Fenn think that these people are hung up on waterfalls?
I forgot to put waterfalls in the failure box.
Yeah. We need to add them. We need a
it belongs there for sure.
And then we need a success box too. But again, it's got to be that question. Why are we hung up on waterfalls?
Two words. Water high. I mean, that's my opinion. Is that the line in the poem that says just heavy loads and water high. The first time I ever read that, I thought that's a waterfall.
Sure.
Just because it just, when you think of high water.
The poem before you read the book, or did you read the book?
I read the poem before I read the book. Yeah.
Which most people do.
Yeah.
So your immediate impression of water high was a waterfall.
Yeah. Especially heavy loads. It sounds like water moving, and it sounds like water high. And anytime I think of water high, anytime you see water from above or from below that's above, it's typically in the form of a waterfall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, in By War for Me, he talks about his special waterfall, which I think reinforces a lot of people's ideas. Like you said, a lot of people will read the poem first and go back and read the book, and they might get the idea of a waterfall from the poem, but then they read By War for Me, and they're like, oh,
bam! It's like
that's it. Waterfall.
That's a subtle hint. That's my confirmation. But you're putting the cart before the horse because you still haven't figured out where warm waters halt. You think you do, and then now all you're doing is you're going around and looking at Doug Scott's waterfalls all throughout New Mexico and saying, okay, now I've got a back plan from this waterfall, look for a creek and do all this other stuff to try and find where warm waters halt, where people are just going to every waterfall and looking for Finn's treasure.
It just struck me that, because I'm rereading this here, this could be Forrest being clever, because they specifically ask, they've painted themselves in a corner when they ask the question. They say, when you talk about not far but too far to walk and take it in the canyon down, is that referring to a waterfall? And then he can say, don't try to change my poem to fit your ideas. So they have already given him the out. I mean, he might be saying, well, that part of the poem is not referring to a waterfall. Right. A different part of the poem is, but not that one.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because they're, like you said, they're painting themselves in a corner.
Right.
They're asking if these things refer to a waterfall. And he's saying, why are you hung up on waterfalls? It's kind of similar to those that have a preconceived notion that maybe Warm Waters Halt is a geothermal feature. When Forrest Fenn asks them, hey, what's your Warm Waters Halt? And they say, well, it's this hot spring, or it's this warm spring, or whatever else. And he goes, well, did you go dip your toe in it? How do you know it's warm? It's that same thing. He's playing with them. In my opinion, if you've already have a preconceived notion, anything he's going to say or do is only going to reinforce that. It's no difference than like what Todd is saying. And I did the same thing. First time I read the poem and thought water high, I thought waterfall too. I mean, boy, it seems like the obvious one. When you go and you read the book, and especially My War for Me, like Mike was saying, and he has this special connection with this waterfall and the event, that poignant event that just so happened to happen when he tripped over that grave marker. I mean, everything led him to that point. So you think, yeah, that's the culmination. Now, we can't say for certain that it's not, but you got Forrest Fenn saying here, don't try to change my poem to fit, quote unquote, your ideas. It's like he's almost saying, look, that's not my idea. Right. Why are you there may not be a single waterfall in this. Why are you so hung up on waterfalls?
Yeah, I mean, and also the context, of their question here. They talk about not far but too far to walk and take it in the canyon down. I don't get waterfall out of that. So I'm not sure why they did.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure Ben probably didn't mean it to be a waterfall either, and that maybe irked him a little. It's like,
and that's what I'm saying. It's like when you look at that, like, I don't know how you get waterfall out of those two lines. So it's almost like he's saying, don't try to shoehorn in that concept in this point in the poem. Sure. But I mean, it's certainly it doesn't negate waterfalls, I don't think, in the poem, just because he said this. And that's the thing about Forrest. A lot of the stuff that he says is that you've really got to see how he's playing with his words and the way he reacts to stuff.
Sure.
He
never answers directly.
No,
we talked about this before. He's always leaves things open-ended.
Right.
If you give him a door, he's going to take it. What
does
he say?
Never use the word "or" in your question, right? It's like,
what does he say in the whole Playboy interview? He always had an out.
Right.
I mean, that guy, when he's sitting at the bar and he's sitting with that guy, and he says, "What do you think of our state?" And he says, "Well, there's nothing but."
Uh-oh.
No, you're freezing up, Sean.
No audio, Sean.
No.
I hear you.
Do you know sign language?
You just cursed out a bunch of deaf people.
Can you hear me now? Or
yeah.
Okay,
we got you.
I lost track, but he said, what do you think of our great state? And he said, oh, well, all you got is prostitutes and football players. And that guy goes, well, I'm going to tell you, my mother's from here or whatever. And he says, well, what position does she play? You always got to have an out, and for him, if you leave him an out, he's going to take it.
And speaking of outs, I mean, he's the one that's brought up plausible deniability. I mean, that alone, the fact that he's said that, you've then got to look at everything that he says as meaning one thing and saying something else. You know, it's like there's always the surface thing, and then there's always something else, because then that creates his plausible deniability. I mean, he's the one that brought that up. We
call that Fenn speak. We've been calling it Fenn
right. Yeah, right.
Here's another one here. I'm going to read this. Of course, all you guys can read it too, but I'll read it for those that are just listening and not watching this, maybe on a replay or something. The question goes, Mr. Fenn, being a newcomer to the chase and classifying myself in the little girl from India group as I live in Cairo, Egypt, I very much doubt in the near future, at least, to pay a visit to the Rockies. Excuse me. But just in front of my laptop has opened up so many avenues of seeing and learning about the region and its indigenous people. So, Mr. Fenn, you got that right. Knowing that the poem has been written in an obtuse way, with all of us having great ideas about the solve, some of which are so intricate, sensible, logical, and still wrong, it certainly makes for a great puzzle. Well, Forrest Fenn responds to that, and he says, obtuse means annoying. So in continuing your thought, I will toss that word right back at you and paraphrase. If all of you have such great ideas about the solve, how can they be wrong? And again, it's
a polite way of saying your solves are all garbage, but you know.
Well, the whole thing that's kind of mirrors between this is about him talking about, don't force fit my ideas or your ideas into my solve. And then he's talking about, if you all have such great ideas about the solve, how can they be wrong? I think, to me, the way I read this is he's saying you keep force fitting all of your ideas upon this. You know, that you gotta understand what my vision is, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think so. That's the hard part, though, figuring out his vision.
Yeah. Todd, did we freeze you up?
Yeah, no, I'm rereading this. I haven't read this in so long. It's such an interesting answer. It's like, you have to like look at what she said. So if you drop in the word annoying, so if we'll rephrase her thing. Knowing that the poem has been written in such an annoying way, with all of us having great ideas. His response is interesting in the respect that he's looking at the poem from the viewpoint of the guy who wrote it. And I think that this is some insight. My opinion in his answer here is this is some insight into a guy that's thinking to himself, why is it that you think this is obtuse? Because really, I think it's elegant and it's there. Why aren't you getting it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he chose that particular meaning of obtuse for that reason, to get that message across, because he knows obtuse has multiple meanings.
Right. Yeah. So funny.
So let me stop sharing here. It'll take me a second. I want to get the chat back up. I know I've been ignoring you guys in the chat, and it's not intentional. Again, guys, we always like to keep the conversation flowing here, and if I'm watching the chat, I don't get to keep up with the conversation here, so it's never intentional, guys. We'll try and go back and catch. I can do that a little bit right now.
I've never picked up the trick of watching the chat and holding a conversation with you guys too.
Yeah.
If I was chewing bubble gum too, I'd fall out of the chair, I think.
I'm gonna try.
There's generally a couple people in the chat room that are always trying to hold court, and keep the chat in a completely different angle. I'll go back and I'll watch the chat on some of the replays on the videos. I'm like, what the fuck are these people talking about? It's funny.
Sean, your BFF Bill Gorman's in there.
Hey, Bill, he is my BFF. Yeah. He's my Bill friend forever.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, how are you, bud? Did I tell you, Mike, I got to go visit with Bill? I went out there to Colorado and visited with him for a night and stuff and hung out with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was cool. Got to go to the Mammoth Parade and check it out. Very cool, man. It was awesome out there. I had a great time hanging out with Bill. He made breakfast in the morning. We hung out and we went, like I said, we went driving through his area. It was pretty awesome.
It looks like he's in an awesome area out there. Yeah. I love Colorado.
Yep. Yeah. Beautiful area. Okay. So do we want to talk more about this low-hanging fruit? I mean, to me, and this whole thing where he says there were strawberry bushes too, but they were isolated. The fruit was small, and it hung close to the ground. We didn't mess with those guys. To me, it almost, and this can just be my complete confirmation bias as a poem purist. Okay, I have to admit to that. But I look at that and I go, it just seems to sound a lot like the subtle hints that are supposed to be scattered within the book, because they're subtle. So they're very small. They're isolated. They're difficult to interpret or analyze or even to find. And they've led us down this myriad of rabbit holes that have led us to these confirmation bias of water high potentially being a waterfall because this waterfall in Vietnam was so special to him, or warm waters may be geothermal features because he's in love with Yellowstone and Yellowstone's full of geothermal features, so it must be this. Brown trout, he's a fisherman, brown is in there, so it must be brown trout. I mean, all these different things to me have led us to believe that those are the subtle hints that help us with the clues that tell us what these things are.
But if that's the case, if that's the case, then what he's basically said is to not pay attention to those subtle hints.
Right. And is this an adjustment? This goes back to the the last panel discussion we had. Todd,
right.
You were within. Yeah. Unfortunately, you had to leave, and we knew that. But is this another adjustment? Is this him telling us to stop messing with those things, stop stomping on the ants? I mean,
I can't imagine that that's what he's trying to convey. Only because if the poem is all we need, then somebody would have found it. I mean, I have to say, after 9 years,
Well, I mean, this new article, he turns around and says, even if you could, or it's quoted by Preston, and we'll get to that. We'll talk about that here shortly. But even with the clues, it's difficult to find.
One thing about the scrapbook that we're talking about with low hanging fruit, and I mentioned a little bit earlier about, okay, well, what's the high hanging fruit? It's the huckleberry, right? Well, I mean, if you know anything about huckleberries, I mean, they can't be cultivated domestically. It's very difficult to actually, they grow in the wild, but like people have had a very difficult time actually growing them, in an industrial way. And it's interesting that he chose huckleberries versus strawberries as a contrast.
Contrast, yeah, it is
interesting. Because if he's talking about strawberries as being low hanging fruit, it's the easy thing, right? It's the common thing. And then he's contrasting it with huckleberries, which is the rare, the rare thing that, is only at certain times of year in certain places. Huckleberries aren't something that you happen by anywhere. You can find strawberries anywhere in the country. Huckleberries are very, very particular. So it's interesting that he talks about this stuff. We're talking about the low-hanging fruit, and I think that's good. But I think if we're going to talk about it, we can't ignore the context, which is contrasting it to huckleberries. Yeah. So if he's using this as a metaphor, does that mean that the solution is rare? Does that make sense?
Oh, it has to be rare.
Yeah, so if we're talking about, okay, we the very first thing we talked about with low-hanging fruit was thermal features, and then we talked about the Fenn failure box. Well, is this kind of a confirmation from Forrest that in fact all of those things that Mike put into his failure box so long ago is in fact low-hanging fruit that we should discard and be focused on the rare stuff, the stuff that nobody's talking about, and if they are, they're whispering about it. I think that's probably the single most interesting thing when you start thinking about the scrapbook. Low-hanging fruit's interesting. I think we should all be focused on what our huckleberries are.
Yeah.
Interesting take. I like it. Sense. Very good. Yeah. Very good thought.
Yeah, I live in a state that grows tremendous amounts of strawberries. So yes, they're very, very common. Very, very common. The huckleberry, he's got it backwards. The huckleberries are rare. So yeah, the low-hanging fruit is the stuff that everybody's going after, and it's not getting them anywhere. So we should be looking for something that's rarer, something that's not so obvious, something hidden in the big picture that we're not seeing.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Sure. So, okay, we've kind of beat the horse on the whole low-hanging fruit tonight. I'm sure the discussion will continue on. Maybe we can create a thread over at Harry's and we can let everybody beat us up. So I want to move on. I want to talk about a couple of current events things. And I want to talk about this Wine and Dine travel article. Have you guys had a chance to read that?
Yeah. I was out of touch for a while because I was traveling so much, but I boned up a little bit. I read that. In fact, I've got it up here on my other screen.
So what was, Todd, have you read it?
Yeah, I have. As a matter of fact, I had posted something about something that I thought was interesting that he said, and then you clarified that it's kind of hearsay. So yeah, I'm gonna say this. First off, you were right. I started to respond on that thread on Harry's to you, Sean, but I'm glad I saved it, and then we could talk about it here. But so here's the fundamental problem that I have with the article. And that is it Margie Goldsmith?
Yes.
I have found, I'm sure that she's a fine journalist, but I have found that some of the things that she inserts into her articles about Forrest are not. They're. I think that she's embellishing, and I don't know if that's the right word, but like a lot of the things that she says, they're not direct quotes from Forrest. Like for instance, last year was the first time she mentioned that he said that he was going to drink a bottle of something and take a bottle of pills and then go up there. Like, I don't know. I never heard that before, and I just feel like she was trying to create a more compelling article, which is already a fluff piece. I mean, that's what this is, right? I mean, it's a treasure hunt by an old dude. It's a fluff piece. I mean, it's not hard news. So she doesn't have to adhere to any kind of journalistic excellence when she's writing. And therefore, when I read this latest article by her, I have to question, okay, what is it that she decided to kind of toss in there that was like kind of a side comment that they had from a conversation that she's not recalling correctly? Because, look, if the things that she was saying in that article are accurate, and these are the things that Forrest actually said, if he said that you could solve the 9 clues and still have a hard time finding it, well, that's a pretty big statement. He's never said that before. Yep. And that, to me, if he actually said that to Margie in that way, then that strong, and that's what I was saying on Harry's, that strongly suggests to me that somebody has in fact solved all the clues.
But and they couldn't find it. And I hate to cut you off here, Todd, and I think this is what we were talking about as far as the correction on there, is that it was actually third-hand information.
Right.
Because it was something that Forrest had possibly said to Doug Preston, because it was Margie quoting something that Doug Preston had said. Right. And I've got it right here. I wrote it down because it was very important. And do you mind if I read it?
Please.
Okay. Well, I mean, this comes right out of the thing, and I wrote it down. It says, Doug Preston says, I was concerned that some really clever person would find it quickly, someone who knew about Forrest Fenn's life. But Forrest said no, the treasure is really well hidden, and that it might take at least 100 years for someone to find it, because even with the clues, it's still difficult to find. So that's, that is coming to Margie third hand. Now, we don't know if this quote from Douglas was 2 years old, 3 years old, or did she re-interview Doug and Preston within a week of each other, or both sitting down there together. We don't know the timing and context of all this happens, but it's very similar. Yeah, it's very similar.
And I've got paraphrasing there is.
Yeah, I've got
we don't know how much paraphrasing Preston did. We don't know how much paraphrasing she did. It's like the old telephone game. You've heard of that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, who knows what Fenn originally said?
Yeah.
Well,
now this whole quote that Margie Goldsmith got from Douglas sounds very similar to the foreword from Once Upon a While. And this is the original version. And this comes from the foreword. And this is what Doug wrote. I said that there were a lot of smart people out there, and I feared the poem would be deciphered quickly and the treasure found in a week. but he assured me that the poem, while absolutely reliable if the 9 clues were followed in order, was extremely difficult to interpret, so tricky that he wouldn't be surprised if it took 900 years before someone cracked it. So 100 years, 900 years, now you've got this add-on. So when did Doug say Forrest Fenn told him that even with the clues it's difficult to find? When did that happen? We don't know the timing and the context. And did she get that all right? I mean, we hope. Yeah.
And therein lies the issue with the overarching complexity of what we're up against, which because as a game designer, it's like, you try to structure stuff in a ways where, you can actually solve a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, with this, it's like we've got the poem, we got the books, we got what Forrest says, but then we have articles, then we have third party people talking about stuff. I mean, this is what I would like to refer to as like uncontrolled data, which
right.
just it muddies the waters, and then it gets back to the telephone game, which is uncontrolled data becomes something that everybody relies on. Yeah. And it's just, it makes this game very difficult to play and very frustrating. And I think that shows a lot of times, in the community, where it's like people like tear their hair out because it's like, I don't know what's going on. What am I supposed to believe? I see that a lot on Reddit. We were talking about Reddit before the show started, and I'm a big contributor there. There's always new people entering the chase through the Reddit, the subreddit for
sure.
And they're constantly coming in asking questions about, like, well, just questions that the three of us would be able to just immediately dismiss, because it's like, Forrest never said that. I mean, so this is funny. There was an actual Forrest Fenn submission to a larger Reddit page that got a lot of attention from thousands of people. And a lot of people thought he was dead.
Really?
Like, yeah, somebody commented, well, we're never going to know because, he's dead, and, he wrote this poem, but he's dead now, so we'll never know. So that, I mean, right there, that goes to show just like the thing that we're up against, right? I mean, people like us, we know everything that's going on because we read articles, we've read things from the past. People entering this, they think he's dead. I mean, that just goes to show you just how misinformed people are. So yeah, 900 years doesn't seem implausible when you're dealing with people who don't even know the status of the guy who actually buried it or not.
And why is that even relevant? What is it even relevant if the guy's alive or not? No offense. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, if we've already have the poem, we've got the book, what more do you need? Stop bugging the guy. Just go solve the damn thing,
Yeah, that's true. But but then it gets back to the whole adjustment thing, Sean. I mean, it's like maybe the poem isn't enough. Maybe how do we know? Yeah. It's like, he's so enigmatic about this stuff. For a guy that makes himself so available on a consistent basis through email, through personal appearances, through people visiting him, he's like the most. I don't know how he does it. It's like, I joke with Sherry. I'm like, it's a good thing I didn't hide this because it would have been found in 4 days because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. And it's like, I just don't know how he has been able to do this for so long, especially with such adversity. The fact that he's seen people die over this, he's seen his family be harassed over this.
Yep.
That
almost nearly assaulted, I mean,
that might be the most impressive part about all of this, like foregoing like the whole hiding part and the whole poem writing part. Possibly the most impressive thing that he's done is to have kept his mouth almost completely shut.
He's an old guy with zero fucks.
I mean, come on. It's like throw a dog a bone.
I could just disappear right now and you guys will never know. I mean,
does he ever have a moment of weakness? It's like 9 years.
Yeah.
It's like, it's amazing.
Well, you talked about,
He's a rock man.
Mike, we got to give you a chance to talk. I think
That's okay.
Todd and I are
That's
definitely
okay,
talking over you.
But he's a rock, and it makes me wonder what else has gone on in his life that he hasn't talked about. There are big sections of his life that we don't know anything about. Yeah. And probably some important stuff went down during those years we don't know anything about. Yeah. And he's got it zipped. Yeah.
Well, I think Todd, when we did the whole adjustments video, you made a very good point in the beginning of it. You said we need to have a baseline, and that is we need to be able to prove the point that Forrest Fenn does want this found in his lifetime, so that we can then say, okay, based upon that, what has he done to prove that in a sort of way? And I don't know if we did a good job. I mean, I think that it was a good video and it was warm welcomed by the community. But Fenn said something in this article, the very end of it, that in my opinion is almost a confirmation of that he does want it found. And that was the very last line in that whole article, where Fenn says, in 13 months, I'll be 90 years old. So I wish someone would hurry up and find the treasure. I mean, I don't know, you guys in the community, you in the chat room, what are your thoughts on that? And guys, what is your thoughts on that comment from him?
Was that a quote? Because I can't recall. Not because now we're talking. So that wasn't a quote.
Out of
the last sentence in there, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's a correct statement from him, according to Margie Goldsmith, that obviously happened in July.
So I'll start it off just by briefly saying, why wouldn't he say, in 1 month I'll be 89? Why did he have to jump 13 months to 90? Why did he do that?
And I could have swore, and I looked for it. So I cannot quantify this or back it up with a quote anywhere. But I could have swore he had said one time before, in 2020, I'll be 90 years old. And by that time, if it's not found, I'll go back and get it or something like that. And guys, I searched everywhere for it and could not find it. So if somebody else can find that or remembers that, great. Maybe I was smoking crack that day. I don't know.
What would be crazier, you smoking crack or him going back to get the treasure in 2020?
Probably me smoking crack.
Well,
Mike, what do you think of that statement from him?
Well, from the very beginning, I've kind of thought that the thrill of the chase here was Fenn's shot at immortality, and he wanted to go on forever.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's feeling his mortality these days. Maybe he does want to see it end in his lifetime. Maybe he's not quite as concerned about having it go on forever anymore. I don't know. And again, we don't know how accurate this quote is. And it is weird what Todd brought up. Yeah, 13 months, that's kind of weird. Why didn't he say by his next birthday? Why is he skipping one ahead? It's a little odd, but that's Fenn speak for you, That, and, I think he does, on occasion stir the pot and try to rally the troops and get people out into the field and bring new people into the game, which is why he agrees to do these articles, I think, to get more exposure to the chase, bring new people in.
Well, Christy said something on the whole adjustment thing. I'm talking about Christy Fiorello. She said something that was interesting about the fact that she doesn't want to leave this whole chase, unfinished when he passes, because look at everything that's happened just, in the last couple of years with people breaking into his home, people dying, everything else. He doesn't want to leave that for his family to have to deal with. If technically, if Shiloh really is going to pass the baton to Shiloh and he's going to be the keeper of this when he passes, does he really want to leave all that on his shoulders? I mean, Shiloh's got business deals and businesses he's running and, everything else. I don't think he wants to leave that with him. So I think Christy made a good point that, maybe he really wants this done because he doesn't want to leave all this to his family.
Possibly. And maybe he wants it done because he knows that, once he's gone, things are going to get crazy.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be people coming forward with fake treasures saying they found it, They'll go find a box somewhere and fill.
That'll be the next thing we talk about is this Rob K guy, and we can talk about that next. We'll finish this up, but I mean, is that just giving us a taste of when Fenn passes, we're going to get people coming out of the woodworks writing books saying they solved it. It's gone,
sure,
but it's gone, and
it's gone. Or I fully expect to see people coming forward with fake treasures. They'll find a bronze box somewhere. They'll throw some gold coins and some.
They just have to go buy it. They don't have to find it somewhere.
Right.
They just got to go.
It's available on eBay.
Yeah. We're gonna plug Chris. I think he's done a cool thing
Right.
with that, but you're gonna have 20 people out there with these boxes.
It's gonna be a real zoo, I think, when Fenn is no longer around to beat down the hoaxers.
Yep.
And say, no, that's not it.
And I think that's, like me personally, once Fenn passes, I just have no interest. Like the idea that he's there, the idea that I like the idea of Forrest being in Santa Fe and me planning a trip and emailing him and saying, I'm going to look for it. This is where I'm going. It's just fun. It's like, because I do know, as many emails like that he gets, I know that he reads them. And I think it's fun. It's almost like I'm going out on a mission for Major Fenn. It's like, and for me, it's that's what makes it worthwhile, is because he knows on some level that I'm out there looking for it. I might be in the wrong place, but it's just, and if he's gone, and I have to imagine that a lot of other people feel this way. Once he's gone, that magic feeling of that connection with this, somebody from a different generation, it's no longer going to be there. Then what it becomes? It becomes the lost Dutchman's mind. Well,
what it becomes too is that finder is never going to have that thrill of handing that bracelet back to Forrest.
Right. Yes.
So it's kind of a loss for Forrest and a kind of a loss for the eventual finder. And Denise Bagley, I wanted to just comment on something she said in here. She said the definition of quote unquote someone is leader. And she said to look it up. I can't look it up right now while we're doing this, but interesting if everybody's looking for some kind of coaxing from Forrest or some word from Forrest saying there is in fact a lead searcher, but Denise, I'd have to look it up. That's interesting if it is, but is that just confirmation bias or what? We don't know, but anyway, but to me, it just seemed like him saying, and it is interesting, like you said, Todd, and I really don't have an answer for you, that he said, I'll be 90 in 13 months, versus saying in a month. And maybe that was because by the time the article would have came out, he already would have been 89.
Maybe.
It's just to send us all through a tailspin because it's 9 clues.
9 clues.
Oh my God, Forrest has got to love. He's got to have fun, and I hate to say it, but he's got to have fun fucking with us once in a while.
If he would have said,
I would be like, oh, let me do this.
If he would have said in 25 months I'll be 91, then I would know that he was up to something.
Then that would be confirmation of your spot, right?
But because there's a 0 on the end, it's
a nice round number, right? Right. Well, no, 9 clues plus 1 hint, or you gotta make a 90-degree turn. It's not a 180 anymore. It's not scrapbook 180. It's 90 now. Now you got to make a right turn. You got to turn around and look to the right. Okay, so now that we're talking about scrapbook, so does anybody find it curious that he hasn't done anything with Jenny with Mysterious Writings this season? Like seasons past, he was answering questions constantly on Jenny's site. Sure. The last thing he literally did with Jenny was the last 6 questions. And since then, he's been putting out here's an interesting story about this searcher. And I find that really odd that he has answered 0 questions. Since when? When's the last question he answered?
Yeah, something changed, and I think he said it was going to be the last 6 questions.
Wait, hasn't he said that he feels like he's running out of words too?
Yeah,
and maybe that. Let's just hypothetically say that there is theoretically a lead searcher out there, and theoretically, it's obviously plausible. There's got to be somebody who, and they may not quote unquote know it, that is messaging Forrest or whatever out there. And Forrest is like, oh my God, this guy is so close. I wish he'd hurry up and find it, kind of thing, so we can get this thing done. that he cannot give any more information out there because this person needs to earn it. He feels like if he says something more, it's just going to give it away.
Well, I think that then that's a possible answer to my question, which is maybe, so here's the thing. If you go back to January 2018, he does the Nightline interview and he says, I don't have much left to say.
Yeah.
But yet he spent the entire summer answering questions, putting out scrapbooks, saying a lot of different things. So he did contradict himself. I mean, in the Nightline in January, he said, I don't know if I'm going to do another interview. I don't know if
I've said enough already, kind of thing.
But yet he spent the following year, coming out and answering people's questions but yet
he's bipolar.
But yet in February, he sits down with Jenny for the last time. He answers her 6 questions.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm stepping back, but he hasn't really stepped back because there has been a parade of posts that he's made to Dale's site, but zero for anyone else. I mean, he hasn't. Sean, have you sent him any questions lately?
No.
His Christie. I mean, it's like last year around this time, K-Pro, you, Jenny, Rick, they were all getting regular responses from him regarding questions, clarifying questions.
Yep.
This year, it's nothing.
Yep. And that was the year of the gut feeling. 18 was.
Yeah. I mean, but this year, what changed this year that has prompted him not to comment on anything? I mean, it's like everything that he talks about is just, he's talking about a Wolverine sighting and he's talking about this artist from the 70s that he knew. It's curious. Like why?
I had kind of a theory about that. I think maybe he doesn't trust himself not to give anything away.
Yeah.
Maybe he feels he's not as mentally sharp as he used to be.
Yeah. What if he marked his calendar back in July and said, "I've got the onset of dementia. I need to start zipping it up."
I mean, got that diagnosis.
All jokes aside.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lucky he made it this far without that diagnosis.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. So.
Well, then I feel bad for bringing it up.
Well,
you're an asshole, man.
Jeez,
what a guy.
Throwing that in Forrest's face.
Yeah.
Or maybe he is just tired of it. Maybe he does think that, he's given us everything that we need and he's tired of answering the same questions over and over again. And
well, the luster's off the lily, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we're all frustrated in trying to find this thing, you got to think he's a little bit frustrated too.
Oh yeah,
somebody
totally.
would just hurry up and find this damn thing, so I can. We all say the same thing too. I wish somebody would hurry up and find this so we can all get our lives back, right? Jokingly. I mean, but he's got to be the same way. He's like, man, I just want to spend last time, hanging out with Shiloh and, all my other grandkids and potential grandkids and great grandkids or whatever.
Plans for the next couple of years that, he wants to get things done while he still can, and he's stepping back. That's a possibility too.
Sure.
Yeah, it's entirely plausible.
And we have to be able to give him the room to do that. I think I had said last year something like, hey, Forrest, it's time for you to, close the gates of Camelot and take care of our Guinevere. Step back. We've got everything we need. Just, let us handle this.
Then. Okay.
Right. But we do. I think we have all the information we need. I think we've got more than enough information. And like Todd was saying, we have too much information. There's just too much noise out there that just pollutes our minds, and it all turns into this confirmation bias. Every scrapbook that comes out, everybody picks out something different, the low-hanging fruit, or picks out the huckleberries, or picks out bears. And this is confirmation that their solve is correct, that I'm the lead searcher, and, he's talking to me type stuff. It's,
oh yeah.
Every time something comes out, it's something new. And there's a lot of people that can analyze this stuff and come up with some very interesting things, for sure. Sasha's great at doing it. Anytime Sasha does some kind of analysis, she's got great analysis. Whether it's right or wrong, who knows? But there's good stuff that comes out of her brain. I can tell you that.
I mean, yeah, the one thing, if you could take away from watching Sasha, is watching a mind at work.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
And in her ability to be able to take information and dissect it and deconstruct it. I mean,
K-Pro, I have your cat. I'm going to hold it for ransom.
That was probably one of the most unexpected things that I wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah. I'm not sure what just happened there.
Sorry, my cat came in here and I had to do that. K-Pro has an orange cat just like that. It shows up in her videos once in a while. I thought it was funny. Sorry, never mind. Don't mind me.
So all I was saying is that if you watch Sasha for nothing else than to watch the process of someone deconstructing something, because that's very valuable, right? I mean, it's like her ability to be able to take things and to be able to analyze it. It's really interesting. And even though you might not, like Sean was saying, even though you might not agree with her, it's valuable just in the respect that she has a really, I think, superior analytical mind when it comes to this stuff.
Yep. She's really good at it.
Yeah. And she's got great screen presence. She could be, she could be a professional presenter on a TV show.
Well, and she does. She does.
Oh. Say that again. We lost you, Sean. No. Is she a professional? I don't know anything about her, really.
I think that I think she's gotten into. She's doing I think a real estate show. That's. I wish I paid more attention to her non-Forrest stuff.
Yeah, me too. All I only know is her Forrest stuff. So yeah, I didn't know that she had some kind of show.
Yeah, she does some real estate stuff. He's right. It's like Real Talk with Sasha Johnson, I think is what it's called. But she does. She does have a great stage presence. She communicates very well. And I think I was gonna transition over to this, and I guess it's a good time to do it. But she is planning to interview Rob Kittener, the guy who did come out with the book Brave in the Wood. So I think she's got that in the works. At least she's been talking about it on Facebook over on Fenn Treasure Hunters Facebook page. She's been talking a little bit about that. So hopefully that works out. She's not going to go easy on the guy, I'm sure, because she's a tough cookie,
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read the book, but from the blurb I saw, I think on Amazon, it looks like he thinks he solved it, but it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
It's
welcome to the club, Rob. We just haven't written a book about it. Well, not all of us.
What is there to write? I searched for Friend's Treasure, didn't find it. The end. Okay. Yeah. So somebody hit it. Somebody moved it. Something. Right?
Or it's a hoax.
Be right. Is that the way it is?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. Seen that so many times too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's. Sometimes you just got to admit you were wrong. Start over again, Well,
that's just it. It's just being humble. And I don't know. I don't know Rob. I've never talked with him. Never met the guy. I haven't read his book. So again, I'm still waiting to pass judgment on the guy. And I know I'm having.
Sean,
you're a mannequin, Sean.
Yeah, you're frozen up and your audio stopped again. You gotta get better Wi-Fi, Sean.
Yeah, I'm directly connected in. That was an issue that I had to work on before, and tonight there must be something going on.
It's interesting, Mike. You just said something. You said,
I'm gonna check on it really quick. Go ahead, guys.
Admit that you're wrong and get a new solve. And and
I think
start over. Yeah. And what I was going to say is I think there's another alternative, and that's kind of one that I've landed on. Which is I'm completely content with my solve, which is I don't really need another one. I may be wrong, I may be right, but I think that if more people kind of just looked at their solve and said, if you assess the solve and you look at it and you feel good about it, then there's no reason. There's nothing stopping you from walking away. Like, I think that there's a lot of people who get frustrated and they have to stomp their foot and say, it's a hoax, or it's been moved, or somebody already found it. Well, you don't have to. You could say that, and then you could say, well, I'm going to start over from scratch, which is fine. And then one other alternative is to say, I had fun with this. Like, I had my adventure. And that's kind of where I'm at, which is there's no place else I'm looking for the treasure other than the place I looked, because I like that place. And for me, that's where it's at for me. That's where the treasure is at. And whether I find it or not, it doesn't matter. But that's the thing that I landed on, and that's where I'm going to be. There's no time in the future I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to start this from scratch. And I think if more people did that, I think that they would be more content with this treasure hunt.
Maybe. I mean, if you really want to find the treasure, though, and you've got this really great solve you're happy with, and you follow it to the end and there's no treasure chest there, but you still really want to find the treasure, what do? You got to start over again.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if it's
totally, I agree with that.
And I feel for a lot of people like Mike and like Todd, and those people that don't live within one of the search states, honestly, because geography allows me more opportunity to go out and test theories. Like an Edison. An Edison had to test new theories on how to build the incandescent light bulb. Poof, it didn't work. Well, shit, go back to the drawing board. Well, he's right there in his office. How long did it take him to make another light bulb and try this different filament out? A couple days or something. Right. I feel very fortunate, and I'm sure many that live within, the search, one of the 4 search states, probably feels the same way, that they could go out and they have that opportunity to go out and test out other theories. For somebody like Todd or Mike or some of you guys in the chat room that don't live that close, or maybe your work constraints or your family dynamics, everything else doesn't allow you the same opportunities. How often do you go out to search? If you go out to your search area and you look one time and you spend 2 or 3 days out there and scour the area and you don't find it, how do you know you weren't within 12 feet of that thing? You theoretically could, and then you walk away from it because you're like, well, shit, I need to adjust, like Forrest Fenn says. And you go back and you say, well, geothermal springs weren't working for me. I need to go figure out something else. Well, what if geothermal springs was the right answer for your warm water salt, whatever one you chose, and then you were in the right general solve. You just didn't have the correct one because you weren't within several steps of it. You gotta, I feel for you guys. Honestly, I do, because I don't want to say I have an advantage, but I guess maybe geography does give me advantage because I do live within, even though it's the very southern part of the search area, I do live within one of the search states. So I can go out and test those. Right? Yeah, Farmington, New Mexico, in the Four Corners area, in New Mexico, northwestern part of the state. But
I get there every once in a while. We'll have to get together next time I'm in town.
I don't want to see you. What fucking?
Okay, you're right.
Fucking like you. I just have you on the show for likes and dislikes. That's all I have you on your thing. Don't come to Farmington. No, absolutely. You come anytime. I've sat down and had a beer. Even Bill Gorman, I brought some Bill and
I was gonna say
beer, and Bill and I sat down and had a catch-22 beer together. I've had a beer with Gay Delkin. I'll have a beer with just about anybody. Gotta talk.
I love that you just said that. Man, I have sat down with Gay and Bill Gorman. Man, I'll drink with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah,
all right, guys.
It went bad there for a second, so I didn't get to hear what you guys said. I'm going to go back and watch.
Oh, that's all right. All right, I gotta cut out.
You got a jet. Yep.
Yes.
We're going to wrap this up really quick.
Yes. Okay.
But Todd, hey, great for you coming in, hanging out with us again.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure.
What escape room is this? Escape room you're in here? Which one is this?
So this is Escape Todd's living room. You have to go through. You have to go through that mirror right there.
You don't even know which way you're pointing.
Right there. Whew, man.
Well, I got another escape room for you. Escape the chase. Good luck with that.
Yeah, Hotel California, baby.
I can't get out. It's like Sean just keeps pulling me back in.
Sucking you back in, brother. Gotta pick your.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. It was a pleasure.
Hey, you still playing the drums?
Is this a setup?
What? I can't hear you.
Still playing the drums?
I can't hear you. You're buzzing out. Can't hear you anymore.
All right, goodbye.
See you, Todd. Todd's always great. We love having him here. He's great to pick his brain because, again, like I said, he does these escape rooms, and he is a puzzle maker in a sense. And he's had such a great insight on how a puzzle maker has to make adjustments, based on, I hate to call it a curve. There are people coming through there, but they have to watch how people do they pick up on what they thought was a clever way to hide a clue or a hint or something. And if it doesn't work, then they have to adjust. And I think, Forrest Fenn has had to do that. We have no confirmation that he is a good puzzle maker. He's never put out anything before. Neither does he. He thought he's being clever. Doug Preston looked at it and said, well, I think it's too easy, and maybe he made some adjustments based on what Doug had said.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Doug's got to be his closest confidant right now, obviously, in his life. I mean, not to knock Shiloh, Peggy, Zoe, or Kelly, or anyone else in his life, but obviously as a friend outside of his immediate family, he's got to be his closest confidant, I would think.
That we know of, yeah.
Yeah, that we know of, sure. Good point.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Minotaur, Todd's a cool guy. That's why I like having him on.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy. I could tell from his first few posts on Harry's when he showed up that, this guy's got a brain.
Well, what I like about him too is I don't want somebody that's going to agree with me on everything.
Yeah.
I want somebody that's going to challenge and he did that tonight. He made some counter points and that's good. If we had, Mike and I probably agree on a lot of things, but if we always had people in here that are always agreeing with each other, interesting?
I always thought that's why you had DeCall in here a lot.
Yeah, DeCall and I, again, we are very much opposed on the spectrum as far as I'm a very pragmatic look at this, and he's a lot more imaginative. But there's a lot of things we do agree upon, as well. So he's always good to have in here, But he's got a life too. He's got a family and 11 kids and a wife and a business to run. He's a very busy person, so I'm always value DeCall's time when he is able to get in here and spend time with us, and he spent a lot of time with us.
Yes, he has.
He's always been there, for the show. But again, I love having different perspectives on here. Again, like having Alan Kay. Everybody knows I'm not a big person on Yellowstone, but Alan Kay did an amazing job on listing all the reasons why it could be in Yellowstone. He did a great job and very well laid out so people could follow it. And I enjoyed
Unfortunately, I missed that show. I think
you got to go back and watch it.
I think I was coming back from Yellowstone. So, yeah. So, well, uh-oh. Are you flipping out again on this? You're fuzzing out? Oh, you're frozen up there, Sean. Oh boy. I guess I'll take over the con before we run into the rocks.
I know I'm back. It's just I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi tonight, guys. I completely apologize. I've never had any problems since I hardwired it in, but tonight definitely might be some local issues we're having here. So we'll wrap this up really quick then, because I don't want to totally.
I'll tell you something else about Wi-Fi in Yellowstone.
The headlights look like we did, buddy. Yeah. But go ahead.
I'll tell you something about Wi-Fi in Yellowstone. If you go in through the gate, they'll give you a little map of this Yellowstone, and it tells you where there's Wi-Fi and where there's cellular coverage. And I'll tell you what, if you go to one of those spots, you'll see you've got like 4 or 5 bars of signal strength. It's, oh, great. And you'll find out you've got no data, absolutely no data, because there's 10,000 million other people in that same spot all trying to use the data at the same time to upload their old faithful videos to Instagram or whatever, and you got nothing. You got nothing at all. The whole time we're in Yellowstone, the phone was freaking useless.
Yeah.
So.
There's nothing wrong with that. Jeez.
No, it was
Get away from our phones. Like,
exactly.
I could definitely use a vacation from my phone.
Yeah. All you could do pretty much was take pictures with them, but you couldn't upload them. You couldn't text anybody. You couldn't do anything.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about the fin failure box. We talked about SB 204, the low hanging fruit. We talked about the wine and dine and travel article. We talked a little bit about Rob K. Again, I think I'm waiting to pass judgment on the guy. I've got my own thoughts, but I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. I want to hear, when and if Sasha does get an interview with Rob, give him a chance to kind of explain himself. I've never seen the guy on the forums or anything like that. He's been in it a little over a year. I remember what my thoughts and stuff were like within the first year of being in the chase. So I kind of get his excitement. But there's something that's just not adding up for me with this guy right now. So again, I'm just going to wait to pass judgment until I let the guy speak for himself, or I read his book,
I'll wait too, rather than lump him in with a bunch of people who came before. So yeah.
One other thing I just wanted to briefly mention, when I did this last week, the whole show with Alan Kay, I brought up this whole Yellowstone explosion. Let's see if I can bring it up here. Where is that one? Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here really quick so you guys can see this. And we'll talk about it really quick, and then we'll get the show wrapped up. Can you see my screen there?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is this came out in May of 2015. And I'll just read this really quick. It said, Mr. Fenn, according to recent research about the Yellowstone supervolcano, and if I do the math's right, that's funny, I've never saw that, there is a 1 in 700 chance that the treasure will get blown to bits in the next 1,000 years. Are you okay with those odds, or does that make you feel like you should move the treasure, preferably somewhere closer to me? Chuck. And Forrest responds, I doubt that a volcanic eruption under Yellowstone Lake would blow the treasure chest to bits, no matter the odds, but it might spread a lot of beautiful cutthroat and lake trout around the countryside. Now, I never really noticed this about this Q&A, but after I had brought it up with Alan on the video last week, I had noticed in Forrest Fenn's response that he didn't capitalize cutthroat and lake trout. Right. And then I posted something over on Harry's, and I'm going to just stop sharing my screen here really quick. But I posted this over at Harry's, and I said, is this a potential confirmation of Forrest Fenn stating that brown in the poem has nothing to do with brown trout? Because brown being capitalized, and cutthroat and lake trout, both different trout, he's not capitalizing.
Right.
And I titled it, I said, proof that Brown and Forrest Fenn's poem has nothing to do with trout, ? And I just was posing the question, not making it as a statement, but just asking the question.
Right. And I jumped right in there, I think, after that and said, hey, that's a good catch. That's a really good point.
Yeah. And I don't know how many people really still use that in their solve or not, but I did a Fennsomnia back in, October or something, or November of last year, where I went into this whole, my reasoning behind why I don't think.
There goes your Wi-Fi again. And I think in the past it's been brought up other places, other times, that even if a home ground were brown trout, there would be no reason to capitalize brown trout. It didn't need to be capitalized. Yeah. Just like cutthroat and rainbow aren't capitalized.
Sure.
So.
I mean, there's quite a few different rules for capitalization, and the two that stand out the most is, you always capitalize at the beginning of a sentence, and you capitalize for a proper noun. That being a person, place, or thing that is a proper noun, a very specific.
And we are talking about a poem here, and it's normal to capitalize the first letter on a line of a poem. Yeah. Even if it's in the middle of a sentence.
Sure. But if you go through the poem and you look at every line, every beginning line in the poem, most of them are conjunctions and everything else. They're not nouns. They're not something that you would normally then be focused on. You have to go and look at that. So my point is that and there's many binomial nomenclatures, and that's a big freaking word. Trust me, I didn't know that till I had to look it up before I did that whole video. There's many binomial nomenclatures of species that get capitalized, and they're generally capitalized because it refers to the origin of that species. And some of those, and I just wrote a few of these down, are like German Shepherd, Burmese python, Siberian tiger, Siamese cat, Guernsey calf. And that's one right out of the chapter Bessie and Me, where Forrest Fenn capitalizes Guernsey in in the book as a Guernsey calf. Well, why is that capitalized? Well, it's a proper noun because it refers to the Guernsey island where that cow originates from. So there's many binomial nomenclatures because everybody's like, well, it's a specific species, brown trout, so it must be capitalized. Well, no, that's not true. You only capitalize the binomial nomenclature of a species if it originates from, or that's from its origin, the place that it originates from. And trust me, I had to do a lot of research to understand that. So I just looked at that, and after doing that thing with Alan, I just realized that, well, here's almost an example of him showing two different trout species and he's not capitalizing it. So, and there was some back and forth on Harry's over there, but I just wanted to throw that out there for people to look at and go check that out too.
Makes sense to me.
Yep. So, man, we've got an hour and a half in here. That's pretty good. We did good.
Yeah. I'm winding down. It's about getting close to
I know
my
it's
bedtime.
late. It's late for you, and you probably got work tomorrow and everything else, 10:30 your time. So we'll go ahead and get this wrapped up. Guys, I know there's been a lot of questions in here. I haven't got to them all. Anagram, I did see that you said something about reading Tom Sawyer's chapters 25 and 26. I'll go back to the chat and read exactly what we were talking about in that context and try and get it, but I'll go back and check that out. I always like to look up stuff when people put stuff in there. There's a lot of questions, guys. Again, it's so hard to have a conversation in here with the 2 or 3 people and then watch the chat room. Yeah. You guys know that. A lot of you people in the chat room have been probably a panel member on the show, and you know how difficult it is. And you guys do, again, I've always said you guys do a great job of just communicating with yourselves and having a good time. But there has been, I've seen that orange bar come up a lot. So I'll go back through here. If I see some really poignant questions and stuff or statements, I'll try and address them in the comments below. So, guys, I always go ahead.
There's one question I saw go by that I'd like to address.
Okay.
Somebody asked, why do I shave my forehead so high? And I'd just like to point out I was the only one who shaved tonight for this event. So
yes. I shaved a little bit more. I go back and forth. I have like this, I don't know, like sometimes my wife likes me with a beard. Sometimes she doesn't. So whatever she likes.
Oh, there you go.
But there's been some good statements and questions in here. We've had a great group of people in here tonight. It's good to see K-Pro and a few others I haven't seen in here in a while. So yeah, I'll definitely try and go back here and see some of your guys' statements and questions and trying to just address them in the chat room. Again, guys, at the end of the show, I always like to ask if you like the video. Great. Give it a like. Again, I care if you like it, not anybody else, because you guys are the ones that showed up.
Thumbs up as we're speaking.
I got 1 now.
No, you got 19 now.
And if you don't like it, guys, that's okay too. I would prefer that you wait till the end of the show to give it a like or a dislike, because that way you could make a clear opinion of the show in its entirety. Don't give it a like at the beginning just because you like Mike, you like me, or you like Todd. That's okay too. But I'd rather you like the whole show.
You're up to 30 likes now and 0 dislikes. I don't think we've ever made this far in the show with me on it with 0 dislikes.
Right. This is a new record.
Yeah.
Geez, what is wrong? Mike, say something controversial. We need a couple dislikes from you.
I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. What can I say? Oh, you're fuzzing out again, man. I can't hear you. There you go. You're all frozen up again. Say something controversial. It's not in Yellowstone. If you're searching in Yellowstone, you're wasting your time. Okay, that should get them stirred up. How's that?
That'll do it. Now we're going to get like 4 dislikes.
Probably, yeah. Oh, there's 3 right there.
Oh, way to go, Mike. Way to ruin the roll. That's all right, guys. So, yeah, again, we appreciate all you guys in the chat room coming out and hanging out for an hour and a half with us. We wouldn't have a show if it wasn't for you guys. Honestly, we'd just be talking amongst ourselves. And it's fun. That's all this show is about is, just a few people getting together and talking about the chase and chatting with some of our friends in the chat room. And that's just what it is about, having a good time. Guys, I am planning a panel show for next week. Trying to get everybody together for that. It's a lot of scrambling and trying to get people together to do that. Behind the scenes stuff that goes on. I'm trying to focus it on, knowledge versus imagination and how that really ties into the poem versus a armchair and boots on the ground. And this is going to be a really difficult one to kind of focus and put together. So I'm trying to get a panel. I'm always looking for fresh faces. I want to give you guys fresh ideas and new people to put in front of you. So if you're interested in coming on the show and sharing your ideas and opinions and if you just want to argue with us, that's fine too. Send me an email. My email's right up here, SeanNM@hotmail.com. Send me an email. Just give me a shout out. Hey, I'd love to be on the show. Great. We'll do a test. We'll go from there, but I always like to get fresh faces on here. It's good to get new opinions. And even if we don't agree, that's okay. That makes for, I hate to call it more entertainment, but for a better show, I think, really. So again, next week, we're trying to put together a panel show for you guys centered around knowledge versus imagination when it comes to solving the poem type stuff. So great. Mike, you got any last words?
Well, knowledge versus imagination sounds like an interesting topic. I'll try to watch it if I can. I'm in the middle of moving, so I may be a little busy next week. So
moving into Mexico?
No, actually, I'm moving in with my fiance.
Oh, and, congratulations! Nice.
Yeah. The marriage is less than a month away now. Right about a month away now. So.
So you guys as fiancés already have a date planned, right?
Yes.
Okay. There goes a couple more dislikes. Anyways. Okay, guys.
But we are talking about possibly moving to Wyoming in the future. So I may be in the search area in the future too.
Awesome. Cool.
So Wyoming is not my preferred area, but yeah, it'll be closer.
It's a beautiful area though.
It is. Oh, it's gorgeous.
We got family in Cheyenne, so yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely gorgeous out there. I love it.
Sure.
I just don't think that's where Fenn hid the treasure. So.
Who knows? Could be.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, again, if you like the video, give it a like. We always appreciate it. If you don't, that's okay. There's another button for you. And guys, I'm out of beer, and it's time to get out of here. So we will catch you all on the flip side. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Next week.